All right, the Minnesota Timberwolves defeat the Denver Nuggets 119-116. They use a 10-0 run at the end of the game to defeat Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. A 17-6 run after that Christian Brown dunk, which, Zach, I don't know what you thought, but once that happened, like, this game is over. This game is over.
I was not feeling great about it, yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of ball left, though. There was a lot of ball left, so I was trying not to panic, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm here with Zach Matson. He's the host of the Cheddarpot Podcast. They do Minnesota sports, a Timberwolves fan. So anytime I have Timberwolves content, he will be with me talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I assume it's going to be a long season because I like this team. And although they're not the same team as last year, I think there are some positives. We'll definitely get into that. But to review this game really quick, not gonna lie, Zach, I didn't think you had it. Didn't think you had it
either.
after that 25-3 run by the Nuggets. You know, fueled by just it was a mixture of a lot of things. It seemed like the T-Wolves were on their heels defensively. If there's one complaint I have about this Timberwolves team this year, it's just they're not as aggressive defensively as they were last year. They're not taking the fight to the team that they're playing against. Except, like, at the end of this game, like, that's how they won the game, in my opinion. They started just surrounding the Nuggets with ball pressure, turning the ball over. They just started getting desperate, and it looked like the old Timberwolves team that we saw last year. And to me, if you could kind of just combine the good things that Julius Randle has brought to this offense with driving and kicking, they're shooting more threes. Ant took, 14? Yeah, he took 14 threes today, which is so many threes, man. As a whole, the Wolves were 18 for 42 from three-point range. So it's just a different team, but they come out victorious. Zach, what are your thoughts on the game?
Super encouraged by the ending. It was definitely, it felt like very similar to all the games that have happened so far this year, where I was pretty unsure if we were going to be able to pull it out. But, happy to get the win, even though it took a lot to get there. Yeah, 3-2 now.
3-2, not bad, man. Not bad. I know after the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, a lot of people were trashing the Minnesota Timberwolves. A lot of the discussion about the Knicks was like, oh, Cat's going to open up so much for Jalen Brunson. This lifts their ceiling. Yeah, they might lose their identity a little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to make this move. But when it comes to the Timberwolves, it was more just like, what are they doing? How could you do this? Julius Randle doesn't make any sense. I like Dante, but this doesn't make any sense. So far, like, explain to me, based off of what you've seen, including this game, what do you like about that trade so far?
I mean, first of all, I got to say, like, devastated by it. Like, you and I talked about it a little bit, but, like, Carl meant a lot to, I think, just Minnesota and Minnesotans. So losing him was pretty awful. But I will say, like, having Julius in there, like a true four, playing the power forward position, you can tell a little bit of a difference. There's stuff in Cat's game that we certainly miss, and especially on defensive end. But I do think Julius really fits in perfectly. And Dante off the bench, he had a great game tonight too. Yeah. Not just his shooting, he impacts the game in so many ways. So I think I really do feel like it was just a win-win for both sides. And, like, see you in the finals, I guess.
I hope so. Yeah, why not?
It really was best case scenario the way things worked out. Like, if he had to go, like, this is a good way for it to have happened, I guess,
Yeah, and Julius today, he had 23 points, 7 assists. I like this offense better than I liked last year's offense. I'm not going to lie. Offensively, when I watch the Wolves play, it's more up-tempo. They're shooting more threes. I don't want to say there's more space, but they're definitely making it a point to get into the paint and kick. It's just a different offense in general. I wish Anthony was more aggressive, though, going to the hoop and stop settling for threes. He took 14 threes today. And I think when they got in trouble today, it was because they started settling. They started settling for threes, and they weren't as aggressive. What do you think contributed to that 25-3 run? Like, what happened there?
Well, it was very similar to the Dallas game that happened. Did you get a chance to watch that one or see anything? Yeah. Yep. Okay. So started off hot. I mean, Anthony went on a scorcher, right? Started off hot. And then just at some point, the threes kind of stopped falling and they start to get into a funk. And it's just, I think, like a classic shoot kind of mentality where they're like, just keep getting them up. Like, they'll start falling soon. But I think that's what, that led to that. The transition defense has been pretty uninspiring so far to say. And I think with taking more threes, obviously you're going to get longer rebounds coming off the rim. So running the transition is got to be a point of emphasis for any team coming in. Like I know the practices these teams are having. They're like, all right, long rebound. It's like Daniel Gafford outlet, Derek Lively outlet, like get a bucket. So it's easy for, I think, other teams to go on runs on us when we're missing like that. But that's part of like the high risk, high reward of trying to be like a 3-point shooting team. But pretty solid night. I mean, as far as threes go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. They shot 43%, which is a really good percentage, even when they went cold a little bit to bring it down to 43%. It's still a really good percentage.
Shooting now? Like he was shooting around 62% at one point, I think, from three. It's probably gone down a little bit, but that was like early on in the game. I mean,
it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat when you outmath the other team. Do the Nuggets scare you, man? Like I know they beat them last year in 7, but like after beating them today and seeing the start they got off to this year, they don't look good. We've been joking about the Nuggets for the start since the start of the season. Really, like man, this is not the same team. We left them out of our power rankings to punish them because they didn't deserve to be a top 10 team. They haven't beat anybody worth of significance yet. I mean, their bench looks awful. What did you make of them today?
I think today, and I mean, I don't know if it was sort of a situation where it was kind of a trap game, and like this is the first time we're seeing them since beating them in the semis, which I don't think a lot of people expected to happen. I think that they were playing with a chip on their shoulder a little bit, and they definitely showed it. But yeah, it's been a tough start for them. I will say I watched the Brooklyn game they had played last night, I believe. And that was a tight one. It went to overtime, but they pulled out in the end. And I remember I was just like, oh, pause, by the way. But I was like, I was not shocked in any way. I was like, of course they pulled it out in overtime. Like, they were never going to lose that game, despite like being kind of like down and tied most of it. So I'm always scared of Nikola Jokic, and they didn't even have Jamal Murray too. Is something to think about for like most of the second half. So yes, I'm scared of that.
Yeah, he went out with a concussion, was in concussion protocol, which moved Russell Westbrook to the starting lineup, which I actually think helped them a little bit. They were able to play a little faster. They were moving the ball more with Russ. And I think Russ with that bench unit of Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther, like there's no shooting. You know what I mean? It's like how when the Wolves, they went on a run at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter, and it was Peyton Watson missed 3, Peyton Watson missed layup, Peyton Watson missed 3, Westbrook missed jumper, Saric missed 3, Westbrook missed 3. I'm like, Westbrook turnover, Saric missed 3. And it's just like, there's no shooting. There's no continuity whatsoever. And I just feel like I'm beating a dead horse here where I'm like, this bench needs to change because there's no way this team is going to beat anybody in the playoffs worth of significance with this bench. They need a shooter. I don't know what the trade deadline is going to bring about. But to me, if I'm a Wolves fan, I'm very confident. Now, obviously, you respect your opponent, which I think is what you're saying. I think you would be confident playing the Nuggets, but you respect them. Like, hey, I'm not going to take them lightly. But I do think that right now the Wolves are better than the Denver Nuggets as of today. Do you agree with that?
Recency bias is true. Like,
recency
everyone's
bias
going to be talking about, Wolves are winning the chip. I mean, like, how do you stop this team? Like, and it'll be a different tune than the next time we lose. So, but I hear what you're saying for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So 5 games into the season, what do you think of the Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle trade? I know it's easy. Don't want to overreact, but what are your first impressions?
Well, I guess we kind of like covered it a little bit already, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think it worked out for the best in the end. Both sides really won that trade. No one's like a loser, and like mostly just gutted to lose Cat from like the community, but really, I always loved Julius Randle as a player. He's also another player who kind of just randomly gets shit on for no reason. And I don't know, like when we got him, people were like, "Oh, he's a bum." I'm like, he's been on all NBA teams,
Twice.
if I'm correct.
Twice. Yeah.
All-Star several times. Like truly was super like highly anticipated out of school. He's a bucket. Like his first game was kind of slow. He didn't do much, but since then he has been automatic. So really happy having him on the team. And like I said, he's a true 4, and I think he fits in that starting lineup a little bit better. And Devo off the bench, like the depth was already good. Nas, everybody over there. Joe Ingles now, which he's still warming up. But we're just even deeper now with Devo. Like we've got Nas as the 6th man, right? Devo's got to be 7, and it's just I always feel confident with everyone on the court. So I think that trade really worked out for the best. We don't got Shake Milton touching the ball. Like, things have changed.
Things have changed. It's a new era in Minnesota.
Yeah, I just hit him with a stray. I really am sorry, but sorry, Shake Milton.
Do you feel like does it concern you that the identity of the team might have changed? Like you're not as aggressive defensively so far, or do you feel like that
I think it's
around?
just kind of learning a little bit more how to play like with Julius's type of defense. It's very different because Carl's really like he's got like a great wingspan. He's tall, you know, like. Obviously, Julius is like pretty strong, but it's like a little bit different fit. The two bigs is kind of gone now. Yeah. Even though I think Julius can play the 5 if he needs to, but like it's just a little different. So I think they're adjusting, and I think you saw like when it mattered the most, and they've done this a lot. Final possessions, they turn it on, and like Rudy's gets a hand up in front of you, and how are you going to make that shot? Like, so I think they still have their identity. I think it's going to take a couple more games for them to like be able to like really do start to finish shut down, keep the team scoring under 100 points.
Yeah,
we'll get back there. It's early.
Yeah, it's not like you lost your whole team defensively, right? You still have McDaniels, you still have Alexander Walker, Anthony Edwards is a solid defenders. Rudy
Nas had like 3 or 4 blocks tonight.
Yeah, so the pieces are there, and Julius himself, when he applies himself, he's a good defender. He has lapses, but when he applies himself, he's a solid defender, and Dante's a good defender too. So. I mean, I think they'll come around as well. I think if they're able to get that identity back that they had defensively last year, look out. And that's why I was like, with this trade, I don't understand why people were so like hysterical when it came to the Warriors. It was like, Julius can play. Like exactly what you said. This is a 2-time All-NBA player. I think they'll be fine. So I still have the Wolves on my contenders list, Zach.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I think as long as Anthony Edwards is healthy, there's nothing this team can't do. So
I agree. All right, well, that's going to do it for this recap. Wolves beat the Nuggets 119-116. Zach, let everybody know where they can follow you and your podcast and all that good stuff.
At Cheddarpot. It's mostly on YouTube if you're trying to watch the episodes, and then follow us on Instagram as well at Cheddarpot. That's where most of the stuff goes down. Hopefully we'll start recording some more episodes soon. We're in a lull right now, but don't worry. Stick with us.
Sounds good, man. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another episode of The Dime. Peace.